Welcome to the Work the System podcast, where we help entrepreneurs make more and work less using systems. And I'm your host, Josh Fonger. Today we have a special guest. We have Tristan White. Tristan is the founder and CEO of the Physio Co., a unique healthcare business that focuses on the care for the elderly. The Physio Co. has been ranked one of Australia's 50 best places to work for the last 11 consecutive years, which shows Tristan has a keen focus on enhancing workplace culture. Author of the best-selling book, Culture is Everything, Tristan now teaches this dynamic system to harmonize workplace culture across thousands of small businesses globally. All right, Tristan, why don't you give us the backstory? How did you become an expert in culture, and how did you get into the physiotherapy business? Give us that backstory.
Yeah, sure, Josh. Nice to be here with you, and thanks for having me on. Josh, an important part of my story is that I'm as we call it here in Australia, a physiotherapist, or in the States and other parts of the world, it's called a physical therapist. And I went to university, studied to be a physical therapist, and came out of university thinking that I wanted to have this 10-year dream, this big, long vision to learn the skills as a junior physiotherapist, hopefully progress to becoming an expert in sports physiotherapy, and ideally progress to becoming a physiotherapist who works with elite sports people, preferably in the AFL, the Australian Football League here in Australia, the mighty Richmond Tigers being my favourite team, Josh. But that was where I started. That was the initial goal. The thing was that I just a year or so into my career as a physiotherapist, I didn't feel like I was probably living a purpose or helping people in a way that really made my heart feel like I was happy at work and doing what I wanted to do. And I think my head was thinking, I'm on the right track. I've made a start in my career and I'm stepping stone towards my 10-year goal of being a physiotherapist for elite sports people. The thing was, I just couldn't reconcile this head versus heart challenge. I just didn't feel like it was the right path for me. And so I thought deeply about what was important to me, what I enjoyed doing. And as a relatively young 24-year-old, recently graduated physiotherapist who told the world that sports physiotherapy, the elite part or the more sexy part of our industry was going to be my career, I made a big shift, a big change. And I realized that helping young athletes run faster, jump higher, tackle harder didn't make me happy. What I really enjoyed doing was working with older people who had declined in their ability to do the normal stuff in life, and visiting an older person in their own home and helping them to stay mobile, stay active, be able to do this things to stay independent, even being able to walk from their dining room out to the front gate, down a few stairs, check the mail at the front of their house, and then return with their mail or the newspaper. It was just something that made me much happier, Josh. I just felt like I was serving people in a more useful way. And so I made this early career pivot to starting to work with older people in nursing homes. And that was the start of this business, which is called the Physio Co. And the Physio Co. started with just me working in a few older nursing homes in Melbourne, Australia. And over time, I started helping a few more older people in a few more locations. And over time, Josh, from 2004 all the way through to 2019, last year, we grew that business gradually, and we ended up with about 150 team members visiting older people in all sorts of places around Australia. And we're in the middle of a change and of a pivot at the moment. So we've got a few less team members than 150 at the moment as we reposition ourselves for a future growth. But the backstory of my physiotherapy career was the early pivot in terms of what was important to me, growing that business with ups and downs and bumps and 2 steps forward and 1 step back and all the learning that comes with it. But what I discovered along that big journey to building a physiotherapy business is that I also had another passion, and that is that I believe the world needs more great places to work. And I've been working and studying hard about what is team culture, how do you build a strong team culture, how do you build a great place to work. And along the way, the Physio Co. has really invested a lot in our culture and our systems, and our people. We've got an amazing group of people, and we've learnt what some important rituals or routines are, Josh, to build a strong culture. And we've been so fortunate that for 11 consecutive years, the Physio Co has been ranked as one of Australia's 50 best places to work. And that's sort of the platform or the foundation for me to then share that story, the system behind how we built the Physio Co as a great place to work. And that's the foundation of the book we're mentioning, which is called Culture is Everything, the story and system behind Australia's best place to work. And so there's a lot in that, Josh, but that's sort of the backstory, if you will.
This is going to be a fun topic because I know that we talk about systems here. Most people think of systems as these working procedures that are very mechanical, but communication is a system, culture is a system, good health is a system. And so what I'm curious about is, did you intuitively know that culture was going to be integral to your success, or were there some problems that happened in your business during the first few years and you're like, wow, I keep having these nightmare situations and I really need to change this?
Yeah, it wasn't, even though now, Josh, I know that you can really build culture, or culture can occur in a business in two ways, either by default, when no one's paying attention to culture, or by design, when you really do put the systems and the foundations in place. I know that now, but I sure as hell didn't know that in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely had a culture by default in the early days at the Physio Co. And having said that, Josh, I had a culture by default. There was no systems or structure in place. By the same token, I genuinely had a view of starting a business, and I thought it was going to be a small business with maybe half a dozen people, a typical healthcare practice is what I had in mind. And I really did want to attract a group of people who were aligned with with helping older people, which is what we were doing. And also I enjoy coming to work with. That were probably my really early thoughts on culture, is that I want to attract people that could also do great work with me, and that I enjoy going to work with them. That was my initial very loose thoughts on what this whole thing of culture was. And I didn't realize at the time. And then I did record, I host a podcast called the Think Big Act Small podcast, Josh. And an early episode, I think it was episode 18, if I'm going to remember back deeply. So I told the story about the very first team member at the Physio Co. And the very first team member didn't last for a long time. I was not very well equipped to be a boss or a team leader at that stage. And I certainly didn't probably attract the right person and then support and help them to succeed as well. So yes, failures as well is part of the story, Josh.
So do you think you would be able to have grown your company as big as it is with a bad culture? Like, is it possible to get big with a bad culture, or is it pretty essential to actually build a good culture to make it big?
I think it is possible to get big, but I think you've got a big mess if you've got a not a very well aligned culture. And so when you've got a culture by design, in my experience, it creates time and space for the leaders to be able to grow their business and have more time to actually lead the business. It went to culture by default, which you can get big with a culture by default, but my goodness, in my experience, it's a big firefighting mess that you're forever chasing your tail and rehiring and retraining and rehiring and retraining and redirecting. There's just so much rework involved in a culture by default. And I think that's the real difference for culture by default versus culture by design.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think and some people that think, well, we'll do this culture stuff once we're at a certain size, but you just won't get there because you're gonna have so many nightmares to get there. And you might as well just build it from the beginning. So why don't you walk through some of your key principles in your book, or your pillars to actually building a great culture? What are some of those?
Yeah. So Josh, the culture is everything system, which we're describing in this book, it's this idea, and it was learned on the fly over a long period of time, incremental learning of what are the principles of creating a strong culture. And the culture is everything system has evolved, and there's a 19-step checklist which is part of the culture is everything system. And because one day someone said, Tristan, you keep winning these awards as a great place to work, and we want to know how you build a strong culture at the Physio Co. How do you do it? And I used to give this long drawn out answer, Josh, and it made sense to me, but no one else knew what on earth I was talking about. So I broke it down, and I listed the 19 sort of recurring, repeatable, important steps that we're using at the Physio Co that I've learned from various places. And I certainly didn't create these steps. I've certainly learned them from all different directions. And then I collated them, I used them, I tested them, and then I documented them in the Culture is Everything checklist. But of course, 19 steps is too many to remember. So that 19 steps is summarized into a 4-part system. And the 4-part system starts with discover the core. Discover the core, really important concept. It's not new, but it's an important idea. I believe you need to have a compelling core purpose for an organization. Some people might know it as a vision or mission statement. I think that a core purpose, why you exist, is a concept that is easy to understand. And for example, our physiotherapy business, the Physio Co exists to help seniors stay mobile, safe, and happy. We help older people wherever they call home is a basic concept there. So discover the core, which involves a compelling core purpose, and then a set of 3 to 5 core values is the first part of the Culture is Everything system. Core values being a bit like rules, more like guiding principles. And why between 3 and 5? I don't think you can define the behaviours looking for individuals in less than 3. And if you've got more than 5, no one can remember them. So it's a pretty simple concept. So first part of the system, Josh, discover the core. Next part is document the future. And I think it's really important we know who we are and what's important to us in the discover the core part, but then where are we going? I think everyone wants to know where a business is headed and what they're focused on, knowing full well that it takes a long time to bring important things to life. And that's why in the document the future section, I reckon it's really important that we have a vision in 2 parts. One is a bigger, longer term approach, and that is that I call it a 10-year obsession. A 10-year obsession is something I learned from Jim Collins' idea of a big, hairy, audacious goal. He talks about between 10 and 30-year goal where we do something very significant in the world. I took the easier part of that, Josh, and the 10-year timeline made sense for me, but a 10-year obsession. And an example of that in our business is that our very first 10-year obsession from 2009 through to the end of 2018 was to deliver 2 million consultations to Australian seniors to help them stay mobile, safe and happy. So a big climb a mountain type goal of a 10-year obsession. But that's far too long for most people in the team, in the business. Business owners and entrepreneurs can think and commit to things for such a long period of time. Team members, I think, are much more incentivized and inspired and connected to something that's shorter timeline. So a 3-year painted picture vision is a concept that I learned from someone called Cameron Herold. And Cameron Herold taught me about the painted picture vision. And so the second part of the system, Josh, is document the future in 2 parts. The 10-year obsession and the 3-year painted picture vision is the 2 parts there. Josh, the third of the 4 parts of the Culture is Everything system is probably the most important, but it's possibly the most boring as well. And that is, it's called execute relentlessly. And that is over and over again. You've got to build the system and then you've got to execute it over and again. And so 2 quick examples of how you can execute relentlessly is a short, sharp daily huddle where team members connect in ideally a stand-up meeting is a really important part of a rhythm for building a connected team. And that's something we've learned from many, many places. It's not a new concept, but it is something that we did that I really do think is important. And the second part of execute relentlessly, which is really important in building a strong culture, is a robust, repeatable, multi-person, multi-step recruitment process. You really need to have a really robust recruitment process to make sure you're attracting the right people, selecting the right people, and not employing and attracting. Tony Shea from Zappos, very famous famous for their culture. He talks about the wrong team members being polluters. And that is that they, if you select the wrong team members, they can very quickly pollute and dilute the culture. So a robust multi-step recruitment process, important part of execute relentlessly. And Josh, last bit, fourth of the 4 parts of the Culture is Everything system is called show more love. And this comes from a place of pain in somewhat, Josh, and that is that a few years ago, I had this growing, connected, important team at the Physio Co. were doing good work, but I thought they could do better work. And I didn't understand why I didn't feel like we was connected as we were giving as much as we could. And a mentor said to me, said, Tristan, do you tell them that you trust them? Do you tell them that you love them and that you care for them? And you know what? I had to honestly look in the mirror and say, you know what? Probably not enough. I was probably a manager who was leading by exception and catching people doing something wrong, as opposed to catching people doing something right and praising them and acknowledging and supporting people to do their best work. So show more love is the last part. It's not only about supporting and encouraging and catching people doing something right, it's also having a system in place or a budget in place for the bad stuff that happens in people's lives. Sometimes we're all human. Sometimes we get sick. Sometimes we have a loss in the family, a death in the family. Bad stuff happens. I think it's really important that as team leaders and as a strong, caring culture, we acknowledge those tough times. We send a card, we send a flower, we give them space to be able to do what needs to be done before realizing that they are ready to come back to work. And that's an important part. Probably the last part of Show More Love, Josh. I think it's so important that we capture the memories. I'm going to hold up a copy of a culture book here. This is a book that we create at the Physio Co. Every year. It's a yearbook, but I reckon if you do so much work and so much invest so much time and effort into building a strong culture, don't forget to capture the memories and really store them away. And so we've got, I think we're up to 8 editions of a culture book at the Physio Co now, and it's really awesome to capture those memories and have a memory bank, if you will. And so, Josh, there's the 4 steps of the Culture is Everything system. Discover the core, document the future, execute relentlessly, and show more love.
Wow, yeah, a lot of great wisdom there, and I can see you pulled from a lot of great sources. So everything you're talking about is tested, proven, works, been researched. And for anyone listening to this and they've got a small company, they're like, wow, I'm really far away from getting that done right. So where should they begin? Or is there a sequence they have to follow through with? Or can they just start off doing their yearbook photos right now?
Yeah, so Josh, this is years and years in the making from my perspective, and I understand it. It might sound building a strong culture and a great place to work might be a great aspiration for entrepreneurs, but you got to start somewhere. And I would send people, if you want some quick wins to really charge your culture, go straight to the Show More Love section. The Show More Love section has got these small incremental steps that you can put in place that can get some results really, really quickly. So Show More Love is where you go for the quick wins. But if you want to put the foundations in place and do the work, which takes longer, but I'd encourage people to start to also simultaneously in the background, as they can find just a little bit of time, get to the discover the core part, because getting that core purpose and core values are the real foundations of a strong culture, Josh. So that's probably the 2 places that I'd point people to.
The other question I have is how deep do you have to go on one of these layers for it to be successful? So for instance, I'm thinking, let's say I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, gosh, I don't have these pieces. Can I draft a quick core and future vivid vision or the 3-year painted plan? Can I do that in an hour and then just start using that in my recruiting tomorrow? Or do I have to really invest months and months building this thing? Like how perfect does it have to be to actually be useful in your business?
Josh, we're after progress rather than perfection. So progress rather than perfection is definitely what we're after here. And this is the challenge that I've had along the way, is that I'm coming from a place of perfectionism, which doesn't result in speed. It results in delay. And so you can definitely, you could set aside an hour to have a dot point painted picture vision, if that's if you had a clear view as to what you're trying to achieve, and then absolutely start using that in recruiting and attracting the right people. There's no need to think it's perfect. And this is the whole system, Josh, the whole thing. Even people that have got the 19 steps in place, like we do at the Physio Co, we're forever refining and improving and making adjustments. And Jim Collins speaks about the concept of a flywheel. This flywheel in business, where it's a big, heavy wheel that you're trying to get started in a business or building a culture. and you have your shoulder to the wheel, and you shove it and you push it, and it slowly moves a little bit, and then you do a little bit more work and it moves a bit further, and then over time it builds momentum. Look, you just got to get started on this stuff, Josh. So I think you don't need to spend weeks or months building it before you can start rolling it out.
The phrase I like to say is your actions will inform your next action. So take an action, it'll inform your next action. So let's say somebody's like, okay, they're excited about this, but they're also excited about making some money. And is there a compromise where it's like, well, if I do this, I have to wait to get paid, but if I just hammer hard on my team right now, I'll get paid faster. So is there like a trade-off that they have to kind of think through, or is there alignment in doing this?
There probably is, Josh, but if something's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And so this is not for the hackers. This is not for the hustlers who are like, let me just quickly build a great place to work that's going to have a strong culture that'll make me heaps of money and keep churning out passive income. This is for leaders who understand that building a great company with a strong culture is a craft. It does take time, and not only do we need the culture as everything system, but there's a critical part of this, Josh, that I didn't realize in the early days because I was too close to it. And it's only been a recent discovery. But to build a great place to work that's an enduring great company, we need both the system in place, but we need a leader or leaders who's willing to be brave, to be curious, to be courageous, and to continue to fine-tune themselves and the system to evolve and to grow over a longer period of time. So it's you can quickly build a culture system, but to really endure and to make it a great place to work over a long period of time, like the 11 times one of Australia's best places to work that I'm coming from, it really does take time to build and to fine-tune.
Yep. I've got to believe the satisfaction is not necessarily quantified only in money when you build something like this. There's a lot of other value you've built that's not just monetary.
The money, Josh, ideally, we build a great place to work that serves the world well. It employs people that gives them meaningful work, and it all comes together. Then money is the outcome in some ways, which can come quickly if you're fortunate, and it can take some time. But either way, it's a purpose worth pursuing.
So why don't people build good cultures? Is it because of their ignorance, or because their lack of focus or vision, their lack of courage? Like what do you see in entrepreneurs or leaders where they could do it, but they aren't doing it? What mental block do they have that's holding them back from doing this?
Yeah, Josh, I reckon that something really significant is this idea that entrepreneurs and business owners, and this is where I came from as well. I didn't realize I needed to be a leader at the start. And then I discovered this idea that I need to be a better leader. And so I started discovering and learning about being a leader for others and building a team and involving the planning and the organizing and the checking and controlling and the finances and all that sort of stuff. What I forgot, what I overlooked, or what I didn't realize is I need to be able to lead myself. I need to be self-aware. I need to accept myself for the mistakes I'm going to make every day of my life. I'm going to accept the fact that I'm going to have some days that I really nail it and some days where I just need a breather. I need a break. And I need to understand that it's an incremental approach to self-growth and continuing to improve. And so I think the answer is that people, in my experience, and I can only speak for myself, but that is we don't know what we don't know, and therefore being more self-aware to be able to learn from our own experiences and then adjust and apply and improve. That's a critical factor in my experience.
So I'm going to kind of give you a leading question here, because I know that you help out with this. So if someone's listening to this and they're saying, "Gosh, Tristan, it sounds like you've lived this, you've done this, you've written about this. Where do I go to grow as a leader?" Because I know you talked about some community that you offer, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Josh. So probably I'd love to invite people to join me at something called Timeout. A Timeout Live Daily Huddle is something that I host on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. 5 days a week. It's something that's that we attract leaders who are growing teams, entrepreneurs who are growing their teams. But for a moment, for 12 minutes, I invite them to join me in a live stream where they can have a timeout from their own leading their own teams and being continually making decisions in the team. They can have a timeout with me, and we can refocus on our priorities for the day, on anything we might be stuck on, and we can share a good news story to make sure we're catching people doing something right. And that's so via my Facebook page and or YouTube channel is the best place to find the Timeout Live Daily Huddle. So that's the first thing, Josh. But secondly, there's a small online community that I've been building that's relatively new, but it's called the Culture is Everything Club. And the Culture is Everything Club you can find at cultureiseverything.club is the website. And but that place is a safe space for leaders who want to build the skills, learn the skills, build the confidence, and be supported to become a leader that can grow a team with a strong team culture, and ultimately, so we can create more great places to work. So, Josh, I'd love people to join me for Time Out Live Daily Huddle, and then consider joining the Culture is Everything Club, our online community.
So, if I wanted to do that on, let's just say, YouTube, would I just type in Time Out Daily Huddle, or is that where I'd find it?
No, you search for Tristan White on YouTube is the right one. Yep, that's right.
Okay.
But we can definitely put the links in the stream here, Josh, and we can put in the pod notes.
Perfect. No, I think this is a great idea, especially, well, for everybody. But if you're a new to entrepreneurship, if you're young, if it's your first business, definitely. And if you're a second or third generation business owner, essential, because a lot of the road that the patriarch or the matriarch went through to build the business, when you assume it, you didn't grow as a leader to get to that leadership position. And so it's essential to build these things. You can't, otherwise your business will fall apart, and the culture will fall apart, and you will not be able to get it back. So this is just really good information, very timely. So Tristan, I wanted to leave you with the final couple questions here before I let you go. I know it's the weekend over there. So I asked this to everybody who's on the Work System podcast, which is about systems. And I know you kind of mentioned some systems, but can you tell us a story or an example of a system that you put into place in your business and what it's done for you?
So, Josh, I've mentioned a rhythm of connection, and that being a daily huddle for every team member in our organisation. I think that's a really important concept, that we have a short, sharp meeting. But we also have a deeper dive, a weekly meeting that's, I think, is really important as well. And at our executive leadership team meeting with the 5-person leadership team that I work with at the Physio Co, our deeper dive weekly meeting, it used to have an agenda item at the start, which was called Good News. And so we all turned up with some good news, personally or professionally, didn't matter what it was, and making sure that we started with some just a lighter note. But Josh, we made a small adjustment a couple of years back, and we changed it from good news to simply news. And the reason is that we don't want to show up and be inauthentic and have to share something good or positive if we've really had a crap day or crap week, or something that's that hasn't gone so well. So the system I wanted to mention to you is find a way to have a system which allows people to connect in an authentic way without having to be overtly positive and over the top all the time, because that's more human, that's more authentic, and it's where you get a deeper level of connection. And now we have team members who mostly show up with good news because we're positive people, but if something's not working out, they've got a space to be able to mention something, and we can connect on something which is a bit tougher for them to share with everyone. It's a safe space. So that's the system I'd share with you, Josh.
That's great. Yeah. There was this trend over the last 20 years where people were really down on meetings and thinking, oh, we have online things, we have software, we have tools, we don't need meetings, we can communicate over instant message. And now I'm seeing this resurgence of people realizing, wait a second, we're humans, we do need to connect. There is a lot of value in that. And so I couldn't agree more. I think that's great. So building out your meeting system is going to make your culture good, which is going to make your company good, which is going to make everything. I mean, it all connects. So that's awesome. Now, what is a question, Tristan, that I did not ask you, but I should have asked you, that you want to leave the audience with?
So the question probably, Josh, is there any, by investing in culture and learning and applying and trying to build a better company via a connected culture, is there any other positives that come out of that, that might affect your life or other parts of your life? And so that's the question that I would have asked Josh. And the answer is, again, by complete default, by complete accident. I didn't realize this. But I'm so fortunate now that I've live here in a little town called Foster in the most southeastern part of the Australian mainland. I've got four kids, including a teeny tiny little baby. But we've used just a very scaled down, simple version of this idea of this strong team culture in our little family. And we've got a few, something called our core promises, which is just a small set of little behaviors that we sort of work towards as a family. And not only they're great for us as parents to be able to a small set of rules that you repeat over and over again is the basics there, Josh. But we can catch our kids doing something right and praise them by living our core promises. And it's some people say, "Oh, that's just not for me," and I understand that. That's fine. But I guess the learnings at work have helped me create time and space in my life professionally, but they do carry over into my personal life, and it builds a way to connect and build deeper relationships and connections at home as well as at work as well. And I reckon that's probably something that I didn't realize, and it's something pretty I'm looking forward to exploring as our kids grow. They're only little at the moment, but that's something that might be useful for others as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, the culture systems, the rhythms, the system. Yeah, we have a lot of those. We could probably talk for a while about that. It's fun. Yeah, I mean, you want a result, and you know that it's going to take some steps to get there. So how would I have a great relationship with my kids? Maybe there's a certain system that I could repeat to get there. No, that's cool. Very good. So where can people, again, find out more about you, your book, your groups, your live streams? Where should they go, Tristan?
Yeah, so if people are podcast listeners, they should check out the Think Big, Act Small podcast. I think that's the best place to find me and get me in your ears, so to speak, Josh. But my home on the web, if you really wanted to, you go to my home on the web, tristanwhite.com.au, because I'm down here in Australia. It's got the .au on the end there. tristanwhite.com.au would be useful. So check out the podcast, my home on the web, and or find me at Time Out Live Daily Huddle on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter would be another option to check out. But either way, I'd love to have people come and check it out.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Tristan, for making the time on your Saturday morning, my Friday afternoon, for being here. And I like interviewing people who've lived it, they've done it. They're not just theoreticians. It's not an ivory tower theory. You've actually worked this out in the real world with your business, with your life. So again, great place to go. Go to tristanwhite.com.au, all those other resources. And if you want to listen to another great podcast, tune in next week. We do live streams every week. And also you can check us out on iTunes or any other podcast player or YouTube, and check out some of our recent podcasts. Also, if you leave us a review, let us know. Let us know you left a review, and send us a screenshot of that review, and we will be giving away a copy of our book, the book right there behind me, Work the System. We'll mail it out to you. We pull out one name out of a hat each week, so that could be you. You could be the lucky winner. So leave us a review, and we'll do that for you. And then also, if you want a copy of the book for free, you can download Work the System for free at our website at workthesystem.com. Otherwise, we will see you all next week.